Okay, welcome back to part two with um, our mood light color portrait. And right now we're going to talk about adding skin tone to the mood light color. And as you can see, I have the list of colors that you would need for this painting. Okay, also you can see here that the colors are very limited. You do not have to have a broad range of colors for this assignment, okay? I wanted to see you guys, so I wanted you to be able to see me. So I'm gonna put myself here, and sorry, that's it's like half shown here. So let's do something like that. All right, that is a little better, right? Um, So basically, here, what we have for our painting is the list of colors below. Five colors. You're going to just limit yourself to these five. And the reason so, guys, is because I want you to learn how to work with limited colors to build up your palette without having to have the colors of the rainbow just to accomplish mixing colors and skin tones and any other objects that you decide to paint. You always do not have to have a broad range of colors. So now let's look at the list of colors that we need. We have here yellow ochre, all right, and I'm going to get my yellow ochre so that you can see that value. Okay, there's that yellow ochre right there. It's beautiful, beautiful, deep tone yellow. And I'm just gonna put a little bit because I want to show some examples for you as I'm painting, okay? Now, if you would look at her skin tone in the example that is right here underneath me, not the one on this side for my on my easel here. That's better to look at that one. Okay. Now, what you're also going to do is you need your burnt sienna. Okay. This is for the reds undertones on her skin. It's not too red, but it has brown in it, so it's reddish brown. So I'm gonna put a little bit right there, and we're not gonna use a lot. Those are for the shadows, of course, in her face. And obviously, we need some white, okay? This is titanium white. So I'm going to put that there. And then our two other colors are our turquoise. We have our light turquoise. And notice how I put all of my colors right here at the top of my palette, which I'm going to put a little more turquoise right there, just a little more. Just because it's going to allow me to use the bottom half of my palette to mix and blend my colors together. For me, that's important. How you create your color wheel of color layout on your palette is totally up to you. There's really no right or wrong to doing this, okay? Now, I am going to be using a rosemary brush that is really good. It's small, but it's really good for blending. You can see how that look. It almost look like if you're a female, you put on eyeshadow. It looks like an eyeshadow brush, and it's good for blending. Now my other go-to would be, and we're staying in the small family with our brushes, right? And that would be the brush that we use to put down all of the monochromatics of the blue. This is a Rosemary 8. It's a filbert, okay? So we're going from a filbert round square brush. Let's look at that, okay? We're going from that to a more round, soft bristle brush. This one is synthetic, but has a nice firmness to it, all right? So we also still have our terpenoid, our odorless thinner. It has blue in it. That's fine. Instead of throwing that away and starting clear, because what we are going to be doing is using our backlight color in our skin tone. So if you're using turquoise, this will work for you as far as mixing the colors together. But if you're not using turquoise, imagine you still having these three colors here, um, your white, your yellow ochre, and your burnt sienna, and then the colors that you are using for your backlight. So whether that is red and orange or orange, whatever your backlight color was, okay? So let's now get started on our mixing of our skin tone. And please do look at the top of the left screen in a second so that you can familiarize yourself with the rubric for this week. Okay. I am going to start in the shadow some. I want to hold the lights, the highlights for when I come back in the morning and I have my blue turquoise light bulb on. Okay, so I'm gonna leave that for then. So I'm gonna just work in the mid tones. What are the mid tones, Miss Sherman? Well, those are not the darkest shadows, but they are that next light down. Okay, so that means my number fours. Okay, let's just imagine on a scale of 0 to 5, number 5 being my darkest. 5 is my dark, dark, dark shadow. 4 is that lighter shadow. And then my 3 is those form shadows. All right, they shape forms, shadow forms, and that's that nice color right there. So even in black and white, I can still see and identify what that color is. So that's the family right now that I want to be in, that mid-tone number 3 shadow. I'll work from 3 to 4, okay, for this one. I don't want to work 4 to 3 so that I can make sure that I am not getting too dark and not too light. So I'm going to take just a little bit of my white and I want to put it right here. Let me grab a little thinner turpenoid. There we go. I'm going to get a healthy amount of this white just so I won't have to remix so much. Kind of circle this around. There we go. Get that paint off the brush. Wow, it just did not, it wanted to hold on, didn't it? Taking a little bit now of that yellow ochre, probably a little too much. So I'm going to move over here and take some off my brush, okay? Adding a little more white. I had that first scoop right, didn't I? I'm going to use just a smidgen of that burnt umber. I barely touched it. Oh, wow, there we go. That's a very nice mid-tone of the skin. If you want to touch, if you print out quite a bit of these references, you can touch your reference to make sure that you actually have the correct color. That's what I do sometimes. I'll touch to make sure that color's right. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Okay, just make sure you have another one above it that you can consistently see that color. Right now, I think I still need just a little more of that burnt sienna. I'm not trying to get you, it's a thin line between Caucasian skin tone and African American, so you have to be careful with that burnt sienna, okay? Or you can just completely make her a different ethnicity, all right? Now, I want to pull in some of this light, okay, turquoise. Remember, we did not use a lot of that light turquoise in our monochromatic, right? I'm going to pull a little bit of that in there. Notice how I did not do a lot because, again, it's going to make that skin tone a little green because we have that yellow in there. In the end, I'm going to get a little bit of that darker color. So I'm going to blend these really nicely together to see if I can still see that skin tone color through there. So let me know now. I need to pull some more of my skin tone colors in. Okay, white. It's coming to life, y'all. It's getting there. I'm going to get a little more white in there. so I can really match that skin tone. And it's gonna look a little greenish because we're playing with that yellow ochre right there. Now, if you don't like how that has turned out and you don't want to get too much of that green undertone for the skin, then you play with your burnt sienna and your white only. Okay, now let's do two different bases. Remember that painting is all about trial and error, where you can figure out what you like the most. Okay, whether you like to add this the greenish turquoise color into, or do you not? Let's create another skin tone without the yellow ochre this time. Okay, that's looking really good right there. In the mid-tone, I can go a little deeper with that brown, just a little bit, because we are doing that number 3 value, not the number 2. Now, I'm going to pull in a little bit of that turquoise. Not bad. I like that. And for this part, I don't want to use that phthalo, okay? So that's number 2 skin tone. Do we like that? We don't know. Let's go and let's do another test run, okay? Let's pull some of that white. We can just work with the white that's over here since it's very little. And then let's get a little bit of that brown. Nice, nice. We really hit it right on the nail with this here skin tone without the blue in it. Now let's pull just a little bit of that phthalo now, and let's mix it together with that skin tone and see what we can get. I'm gonna throw in a little more of that brown. There we go. Very nice. The color palette here is a little bit more subtle, just a little bit, okay? So now we can choose after blending really, really good, okay, the browns. So we have a more muted, lighter green tone. We have a darker, more saturated green tone. And then right here, we don't have a green tone. We literally have the skin tone with a little bit of that turquoise in there. And that is the one that I like the most. So I'm going to go with this one. And I have to remember that was my white, my burnt sienna, and a touch of my light turquoise. No yellow ochre. And see how we just problem solve that out by mixing your colors together to get a nice color value that you like. I'm gonna throw a little more of that light turquoise in. And I'm painting this area right here, right underneath her cheeks. I identified that from my references, black and white one and my color one. And then on my painting itself, I go in and paint exactly what that is. All right. And because we're using oil paints, you guys, you don't really have to use a lot of your turquoise, especially if your painting have not dried. If your painting have not dried yet, basically you're still pulling some of the turquoise from the monochromatic sections of your painting. I'm going to grab some white here, and I'm going to bring some right off in there just a little bit. Remember, we paint light, shadow, and then a little bit of the light next to it. So voila, I love that. I'm going to pull a little more of that turquoise in, and I like it. I like that. Not too much, just really subtle, okay? And at this point, I'm going to grab my phthalo now, okay? Without the skin tone color on it, I'm going to come back and touch up where that dark shadow of my phthalo turquoise meets the flesh color. How that blends in so naturally. And I'm really like feather painting, like very softly. Okay. Wow, that works really nicely. So I'm gonna take just my phthalo, dark turquoise, and my white here and bring back in some of the light, just a little bit. I'm not gonna go into my very bright highlights yet until I get my blue light put here. Just touch it up. Now you are seeing here just a little bit of that flesh skin tone in this here painting. Okay, for the mood, the to set the mood of the blue that's still married with the skin tone. And that really is subtle, but it's nice at the same time. I want you to go to your Google Classroom so that you can look at some of those examples that I put there for you, because those examples are very, very important for you to see how not just myself, but other artists applied the color to the skin tone. Oh, just awesome. Just love that. Okay. And I'm repeating my step that I've done here only in those number fours that I see on my reference. Okay. Just those number fours. And remember that I laid that color down, the skin tone, with a little bit of that um, light turquoise in there. I hid it in the number four of the shadow. And then I took my darker turquoise to blend back in its shadow into the form of the light. So, hoping that this was is informational to you as far as getting skin tone mixed in with that blue. Okay, doesn't have to be that skin tone and the blue is just so strong, but just very subtly, like it's barely there. That's the word subtle that I want to use, meaning that it's barely there. It's kissed with a little bit of the skin tone, but not strong. We can still see the blue behind the skin, and that works. As you are painting, continue to remember your shapes, your shadow, and your highlighted shapes. You want to keep those going. That is very important in your painting. Okay. And let's see. Really want to just focus in on brushing in a lot of those number fours. Number four values. They're barely put in there. That skin tone is barely put in. Gorgeous. And I just did a little bit of that other side over there. I'm not so happy with right here what happened in that eye. So I'm going to touch that up a little more. There she goes. All right. Got a little carried away right there, didn't I? Right, I'm gonna put that eyeball of eye back in, and now you can see even more how the light of the skin tone is married into the blues. I'm gonna keep going only on the number fours, and you have to identify your number fours yourself by doing your own value chart, maybe. Coming in, oh, okay. Coming in and identifying, maybe print this again, or on your phone, identify your number ones, your number twos, your number threes, your number four, and your number fives. Do that yourself until you really get more acquainted with color values and value transitions. To me, it took me a while to just really get it down. So it's not going to always happen overnight. It takes practice. Okay. Now I'm still coming in now with this nice skin tone color. I might have to make me some more here. I'm just running a little low. I was playing with the colors and then the color really happened. Right? And one thing I want to share with you, okay? Don't overblend, right? Because I found myself right here. I did that line, it was perfect, right? But then I kept blending and it just got into that turquoise too much and changed the value of it. So this here I like to call that, you just lay it and leave it. Lay it and what? Leave it. Lay it, leave it. As it dries, if you want to change the value of it when it dry, come back on top of it if you like to. But try to lay that color, leave it. See what I just did? I laid it and I did what? I left it. I left it. Lay it and what? Leave it. Again, lay it and what? Leave it. Again, in that dark, in the blues, lay it and leave it. I'm still working with those number fours. Lay it and leave it. Each time I'm identifying my number four values, lay it and leave it, and so on. And it's important for you to know that you don't have to saturate this here portrait with too much skin tone color. The whole thing is for the background colors to reflect on the skin tone. So we want to keep it simple here. We don't want for this whole painting to be skin tone and leaving out the blues that we worked so hard to establish, okay? So be careful. Oops, I didn't want to do that. When you do that, I'm just going to put a little bit of that blue right there. Oh, no, I do not want to do that. Let's take that away. So I didn't like this, so what I did was I put that deeper blue right back there, and hey, it's gone, okay? Sometimes if you're not afraid to make a mistake, you learn from your painting. You just really do. You just can't be afraid to make those, oops, did I do that? And it's okay to have that, do I want to do that? Yes, I do. Not too much. Did I like that? No, I did not like that. See, that was one of those, did I really want to do that? No, I don't. All right, so I'm going to take that away. So what I did was I cleaned my brush with the thinner, coming back on top, dabbing that away, touching it back up with my turquoise and my white. There we go. I just wanted it to barely look like that skin tone was in there. So what I did was I just went a little too bold, and I didn't want to do that. So I'm going to now continue to establish those number fours, and I'm going to pull this a little closer to you so that you can really see how subtle that skin tone is. Let me turn off one light because I want you to really see the transition. There we go. Look at that. Okay. Yeah, you can really see the transitions in the values so much more, but when you're just laying in a little bit of the color and then pulling those values out. In and out, staying in the shadow though mostly, okay? Stay in the shadows. Look at that. Soften those hard lines. This is what I'm doing right now. I'm taking this brush with a little bit of that shadow color and I'm going on top of the edge of every single one of those lines and I'm softening them up. I just lightly brush on top of it to blend it. That's what I do. Yeah. Because we really don't want her to look animated, right? Like she's an animated cartoon character. We want her to have the softness of a female face, yet the hard wrinkled lines of an elderly lady, okay? So in some parts, want to really get soft right there. See, that's just soften it up so much more. The only hard lines that you will have, hard edges, would be the glasses, right? So coming back in right there and getting really some of those strong, hard shadow lines. Look at that. That just really brought it to life even more, didn't it? Okay. Pay attention to all the details of shadows. It's just pretty much what makes your painting what it is, those awesome shadows, okay? And I'm gonna come in and put a little more of my shadows here. Have a good evening.
I'll see you. She doesn't have a lot of experience, so
Okay.
I'll take off.
All right. Have a good evening. So coming back in here, softening the side of her face just a little more. And what I did was I used that phthalo, that darker one, to soften that up so that it looks like the edge of her face is fading into the background. Even though it's pretty hard on the photograph, in real life, you have to think about how a painting would look in how a person, excuse me, will look in real life. Would she look like she has those hard, stern lines? No, she wouldn't. She would have a little more softness to her. So after you establish and define those shadow shapes from our video at the beginning, come back in and pull some more softness. Grabbing that blue, that darker blue, and really bringing in soft like a feather. And then again, this filbert brush that I keep putting back up actually does that. I'm so used to using the filbert square brush that I'm not used to using this kind of a round, yeah, this round, looking like a makeup brush in my opinion. But look how it softens it up so well. That is just gorgeous. Wow. And wouldn't it be awesome if you did just take a couple of makeup brushes and paint it with your makeup brush? Do you have to always paint with a brush? No, you do not. You know, soften those edges up with a makeup brush if you have to, okay? Sometimes really going against the rules per se, I'll say, which there aren't really rules for some painting unless you are classical painting. And I'm in between classical painting here, and I think I am, and contemporary. The classical part in this painting would be how soft or blended I'm painting, okay? That's giving this realistic approach. if I was to leave these hard lines and just flat colors, maybe that's unusual, maybe that's different. And so that would be more of a contemporary kind of style. But I'm not. I'm pulling in a little bit of both, okay? And I gotta bring back that light in her nose just a little more. There we go. Just, I lost that light. And I'm not happy that I lost that light. Fix that too. Let's get back that. When I lose an edge, I switch back to my filbert brush. It has more of a straight edge because I lost the curved edge of her glasses. So I needed to get that back, okay? It could be like, got two brushes in my hand. Really working with it, right? Let's pay attention here. Keeping those awesome shadow shapes again. Defined yet blended, okay? Pull back that darker skin part right there. Darker blue back into that skin. All right. Woohoo! Loving it. I'm gonna clean this brush a little bit because what I want to do is the same thing that I did. Let me pull this over a little more so you can see that. All right, there we go. There she go. The same thing that I did right here in her cheek, that number 4, is over there on her skin. So I need to work with that to put just a little more of that skin tone right here. So I have to remix it now because I did lose it. I noticed that I'm starting with the dark and then bringing the light, okay? I started with the brown, then I put a little white. For me, for this all painting here, it doesn't matter if I start for the skin tone right there. It doesn't matter if I start from dark to light or light to dark, okay? We're mixing my color. All right, just a little bit of that blue in there now, very subtly, just a little bit. Not so much that it makes it green. Perfect. I got that color back again that we had right here. Testing it, yes I did. And bring it in just a little bit right there. I'm gonna switch over now to my non-blender brush. Okay, my non-blender brush, because that was a blender brush and it's not what I wanted to do. Okay, get that blended in nice and softly, but keeping some angles. It's pretty good. And more skin tone, finding the edge right there. More skin tone. A little more white. Right here is where the browns are on her skin. You gotta pay attention to where you lay the deeper undertones for her skin. Then there's a thin line between making her turn to a whole different ethnicity, and we don't want to do that, right, for this portrait, okay? There we go. Take it to green on me. Almost got a little too green on me. Let me work with that a little more. And if you find that that happens to you, just either take some of it away or continue to work with the color, okay? And what I'm doing is I'm wiping my brush off on my towel every time that I'm remixing or making a color, okay? Just to keep it nice and clean. I'm pulling some of those whites in right now with the light turquoise. Too much. There we go. Soften it up just a little bit. I'm gonna play with the highlight just a second so that I can make sure I'm on task with this. No, I don't have my blue light right now, but I really need to play with how deep and how light I need this part to be. There we go. Okay, I was on track. I had to figure that out for a second. There we go. And now a little more of those browns right in this cheek right here. And I'm gonna do what? I'm gonna lay it and leave it. And then let me go over here and add a little bit of that brown in. Lay it and leave it. Because that's the rosy part of her cheeks. But yet at the same time, not so rosy that is red. Just the brown with a little bit of the red undertone. And that's why we used what color? Burnt sienna. That's why we used that one. Awesome. Right, touching up a little bit on those number fours now. We went from a 3, I believe we just went from a 3 to a 4. And I'm just touching up a little bit where those number 4s would be with a little bit of the burnt sienna, but just a touch of the white, just a touch. Don't use a lot. There we go. I want to change that and go a little deeper brown right up here in his brow because it's actually in the shadow over there as well. Make sure to keep the shadow in the shadow. The reflective light also keep it in the shadow. Okay. Now I'm going to stop right there because I don't want to go too far at this time without having my blue light shining on this painting as I am painting it, so that you can get a really good idea of how the blues are reflected in the skin tone. Okay, and notice how I just softened up the shadow of her forehead. I still gave the impression that she has 140 are now dismissed. Excuse me, that she has the rest of her head here, just by putting a little bit of that darker brown skin tone mixed with that blue, just a little bit. Now, we are getting a little bit of green undertones for this, and that's okay, because we still see the blues coming through. But with so much yellow and brown, yellow in the brown, it's going to make a little green tint to the skin, and again, that is okay. That's why I want you to not blend so much. So you lay it and you leave it more than you are blending it together. That would
Room
help.
41 to 102 are now dismissed.
Sorry. That would definitely help to keep um, the green away. So lay, don't blend. Lay it, leave it, don't blend it. Lay it, leave it, don't blend it. Lay it, leave it, don't blend it. All right. And as you're painting, if you just say that as you're painting, that might help as well. So I hope that you got a good understanding of the first stage to adding the skin tone to the blue. All right. And tomorrow I'll have my blue light and we'll add more skin tone to her. Have an awesome afternoon.